Well, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Justin Dyke with the Tualatin Valley Water District, and welcome to this first quarter of 2025. We're doing a February 2025 Water Mains Replacement Talkin' Water edition today, and we want to thank you for spending your lunchtime with us. It's our privilege to have some really great experts from our engineering team join us today to talk about what goes into the planning coordination of a water mains replacement project. We'll be starting today with a little bit of our regular guidelines. As a reminder, before we get into the heart of the presentation, these sessions are recorded. Please make sure your microphone is muted, and we will have a full coordinated Q&A after the presentation. However, we don't want you to forget what your great questions might be, so we encourage folks to use the Q&A, which is circled in red, and the bubble there in the middle of that slide. You can type those questions at any time so you don't forget them. And after the presentation is over, when we get into the Q&A, we'll be able to address questions from both the Q&A typed section, as well as we can have people use the raise hand function and come off of mute to ask their questions directly of our engineering staff about water main replacements. One other reminder we want to have is that we do have some accessibility features built into the Teams program. So at the bottom left of your screen, you'll see an ellipsis, the three dots. You can click on that and modify the way the slides present to you, so you can zoom them in or out larger. And you can also use some translation features to make this presentation as accessible for you and your needs without changing it for anyone else that's joined us today. So today we're going to hear from two folks from our engineering team, both Marisa Cummins and Sarah Alton. They've been with the district for a while. They coordinate, plan, and oversee all of our water mains replacements projects. And I will be turning it over first to Sarah to introduce the topic today and get into the expertise. And really look forward to hearing from her. And thanks everyone again for joining. Sarah, take it away.
Thank you, Justin. I'll be moving the slides forward now. And in today's presentation, we will be going over a few topics. So we'll start out with just an overview of Tualatin Valley Water District, who we are, what we do, our water mains replacement program, why we have one, and how we manage the program. We'll also talk about the tool that we use to prioritize our water mains replacement projects, some condition assessments that we do to know which projects to do. And we'll also give you a few examples of projects that we've completed, as well as projects that are actively under construction. So Tualatin Valley Water District, we are a drinking water provider, so only the water that you put in your body, not the water that comes out. And we are located in unincorporated Washington County, parts of Beaverton, Hillsborough, and Tigard, and our service area is 41 square miles. Within that area, we have about 760 miles of buried pipeline and counting. And from that pipeline, we serve about 223,000 people, making us one of the largest drinking water providers in the state of Oregon. We also have a large number of residential service connections. You can see we have about 59,000 of those. And then on our non-residential service connections, we have about 3,000 of those. So those serve your industrial users, your commercial users, and your multifamily housing. So what we're here today to talk about is those 760 miles of pipe that are buried underground, how our engineers make sure that those are in good condition and serving you with reliable water. In the last fiscal year, which ended on June 30th of 2024, we repaired 75 mainline leaks during that entire fiscal year. And what those leaks are on the water main, which you can see in this picture, that is a gray buried pipe, usually located under the road, that serves each individual one of those residential service connections. So a residential service connection or a commercial connection tees off of our water main and then goes to that private property. So we're really focused in on what's happening on those water mains that are buried under the street. And you might be wondering, what are some of the reasons why we have leaks on these pipes? Some of the reasons could be as simple as a contractor hits them as they're doing construction in the area, or they could be as complex as a corrosion leak. And so when we look at the ways that our water mains fail, we want to categorize what actually caused the leak, because that helps our engineers determine how important or how critical it is for us to actually get out there and proactively address the issue. So you can see in the pie chart that we have these roughly categorized into thirds. 1/3 of the leaks are caused by other factors, which I've mentioned could be something as simple as a contractor hit on our pipe. Another third approximately is a shear break, which I'll explain what that is in just a moment. And another third is a corrosion break. And that's what we're really going to focus on as part of our water mains replacement program. And we'll show you pictures of what those look like in just a couple of slides. So a shear break is something that happens on our cast iron water mains in our system. These water mains were something that were installed about 1980 and prior. And so they're on our older pipes that are cast iron, and that what happens is there's basically a brittle fracture on that pipeline. These are really simple for us to go out and fix, and we can usually return service in about an hour once we've repaired something like that. The corrosion leaks, on the other hand, are when the pipelines start to actually get holes from rust and they start to fail. Once that happens, it's kind of inevitable that these pipelines are going to completely fail, and a repair on these will only last a little bit of time. So what is corrosion? Corrosion is the deterioration of a material, usually a metal, that results from a chemical or electrochemical reaction within the environment. So think about a penny that you might see outside that's been outside for a while. Instead of that really shiny copper, it's going to turn into a dull brownish, maybe even a little bit of green. That's what we mean when we talk about corrosion. And that happens on our buried pipelines too. And so you can see there's all sorts of science that goes into this. And on the next slide, I'll talk about some of the factors that we see that cause corrosion on our pipelines. So what are some of the factors that influence corrosion? We've got temperature, relative humidity, salt content, acidity, oxygen, steel composition, and soil composition. And so some of these things that are really important in the Pacific Northwest where we live is the temperature, the humidity, and the soil composition. So as you know, we have really cold days, we have really hot days. Those temperature fluctuations all impact the ability of the soil to be corrosive to our pipelines. And then the other big factor is our soil composition. Where we live in the valley here, we have a lot of clay soils, which are very corrosive in comparison to our buried water lines. So you've probably been out gardening or landscaping, and you've had to dig through that tough clay soil. That's what we're talking about when we say the clay soils. And when those touch our water lines, that can cause corrosion. So our engineers look at ways of keeping our pipelines protected from these different factors that can influence corrosion. We look at, installing our pipelines with protective coatings, such as plastic polyethylene encasement, or with a cathodic protection system that will help protect them. So this is what corrosion looks like on a buried water main. You can see in this picture on the left that you'll see these things that we call pits. Basically, it's an indentation on the surface of the pipeline that's not quite yet a hole, and also some of this surface roughening that you can see kind of on the bottom of the picture. When that starts to happen, that's when our engineers are really concerned about getting out there and proactively replacing the water main so that we don't end up with a failure. So you can see in this middle picture, if we let those pits continue to grow, they eventually get all the way through the surface of the pipe and cause these holes. That's when our customers are going to notice, hey, we have less pressure than we're used to, there's water bubbling up from the street, and our crews are going to respond to that and fix the water main. If that continues to progress, unfortunately, we can have a catastrophic failure of the water main, which is going to look something like this picture here on the right, where a whole section of the pipe has fallen apart. And that's why these corrosion ones are really important for us to monitor and make sure that we're actively replacing them, so we don't get to this point where a repair is going to take hours for us to return everyone to service. So now that you know about kind of what we're concerned about, I'll turn it over to Marisa so she can talk about how we actually manage a program to replace these water mains.
Thank you, Sarah. Let's see. All right. So when it comes to replacing water mains, the engineering team at TVWD uses a prioritization tool that was developed by TVWD staff in 2013. We have 14 different criteria that was selected over a series of meetings with staff. We have different point levels assigned to descriptors within the criteria in order to rank these projects to see which ones need to be prioritized over others. So ranking criteria as far as risk. We've defined different conditions of pipe to use in the ranking. Ranking was divided into the following with each project scored. So pipe condition, system capacity, installation method, and leak history. So for example, you can see the graphic on the top right. There are 5 different situations of pipe condition. So excellent is pipe that's still, it's bagged, it's covered with polyethylene encasement. The pipe still looks very good. There's no pitting, like what Sarah talked about earlier. And then all the way to failed. So you can see that there's a repair band on that pipe. You can see that there is pitting. So that's something that we would look at, and we would want to move that up the list, so to say. And it would do so by assigning the point system. And then leak history. So the bottom graphic shows Southwest Oak Street, which is a project that we have coming up later in the spring. And just in this area of pipe, you can see the X's where we've had leaks. So whenever our crews go out to respond to a leak, they assign a GPS coordinate to where that leak actually happens. And then it updates to our mapping system. So our engineering team is in the loop on where the problem areas are. So ranking criteria also goes into consequence of failure. So rankings divided into the following with points assigned: critical infrastructure, project coordination, consequence of failure. So critical infrastructure in TVWD's district is reservoirs, pump stations, anything that keeps our system working. If we know that there's an issue with pipes that is near critical infrastructure and it would affect a greater area of people, then that would move it up on our list as far as priority. Project coordination. So we work with partnering agencies such as Washington County, City of Tigard, City of Beaverton, and try to coordinate with them, especially when they have paving projects, in order to save our customers money on our replacement jobs. So we'll talk about this more later as an example with the City of Tigard coordination project. But on the graphic on the right, you can see that the TVWD project boundary is shown in yellow, the dashed line, and then the Washington County slurry seal project is shown in pink. So we took that opportunity to know that the county was going to be doing some paving, and we replaced an aging water main ahead of them because it saved us money. Go to the next slide. So more on consequence of failure. We look at business impacts. That could be daycares, assisted living, schools, restaurants, cost to TVWD, the project as a whole, criticality of water service. And a good example of that is St. Vincent's Hospital, Providence St. Vincent's Hospital. High water use customers such as Intel, Nike, area served, proximity to critical infrastructure, and then traffic impacts. So traffic impacts are very important just because busy roads equal high traffic, and high traffic is high traffic control cost and more dangerous work environments for our crews. So in an emergency repair situation, we want to make sure our crews are safe, and main breaks on high traffic roads are ranked higher in hopes that we replace known areas of concern ahead of multiple emergency leak repairs. So how do we determine project scope? We do condition assessments on our pipes, and there are 2 methods we use. It's pipe coupons and potholes. Talk about those. So what are pipe coupons? Pipe coupons are sections of pipe that are collected from repairs and new construction. We started a pipe coupon catalog of all coupons brought in by TVWD staff. Each coupon is photographed and condition information is recorded. We are able to look at pipe condition, the remaining wall thickness, and then the pitting depth. So like Sarah said, we have small pits, that's concerning, but if the pits are larger and larger into the wall of the pipe, we know that it's a matter of time before that pipe will fail. The information from these coupons is stored digitally for future analysis and decision-making regarding the pipe in that area. We also do potholes. Engineering selects multiple locations on a pipeline to help determine the scope of project. Our operations staff will excavate all around the sides of the pipe at these predetermined locations. The pipe is then cleaned so that an inspection can be made. Soil from the excavation is set aside for resistivity testing. Information is recorded electronically with GPS points in our mapping systems online. We use a pneumatic needle scaler to remove any outside coating where corrosion is visibly present whenever we are doing potholing. And then we use a pipe pit gauge to measure the depth of visible pits. The depth of the pit can be used to determine the amount of remaining pipe wall. Potholing has been proven effective, eliminating over $1 million in projected scope of replacement in the past year alone. It allows TVWD to estimate remaining lifespan of a water main. And I know we did some potholing over the summer on Stoddard Drive and Wooded Way, and we were able to reduce, or I guess postpone, a replacement due to the condition being a lot better than what we expected. So communicating with our customers, we inform customers in advance of water main replacement projects through postcards, text messages, automated calls, and emails. This proactive approach ensures customers are aware of upcoming work, allowing them to prepare for any temporary disruptions. Throughout the project, we provide real-time updates using the same communication channels. Our goal is to ensure that customers are well informed and feel supported throughout the entire process. Effective communication is key to achieving this, as it helps build trust, reduces misunderstandings, and enhances overall satisfaction with our services. So I wanted to highlight a couple of projects. A recently completed project as part of this program is Southwest 175th Avenue, south of Granada Drive. So previously we had about 400 feet of 4-inch cast iron with 2 leaks recorded. We replaced that with about 400 feet of 8-inch and 4-inch ductile iron pipe. The rank on our prioritization ranking, it was 7th, and the driving factor was very poor pipe condition at the area of the leaks. Status, we completed construction in January 2025. We will do final restoration of paving this spring. We're waiting for a warmer weather window, which will only, it will make the paving last longer. We don't try to do final paving in the wintertime. So our current project is Southwest 92nd Avenue at Greenberg in the city of Tigard. The existing was a 4-inch, or is a 4-inch cast iron. We had 4 shear breaks recorded between 2019 and 2022. And then we are installing about 1,000 linear feet of 8-inch ductile, 8-inch ductile iron pipe. The rank on the prioritization tool was 10th, but the driving factor was the City of Tigard paving project. So the City of Tigard contacted our engineering department and said that they were going to be paving Southwest 92nd Avenue. We looked at our mapping system, we looked at the prioritization tool, and the condition of the pipe needed to be repaired. So we are installing the new pipe ahead of Tigard's paving project. And in this scenario, we don't have to put any final restoration. Tigard is, they are assuming all of that in their cost for their project. So that saves our customers money. We are currently in construction. We are expected to be complete in mid-March, ahead of Tigard starting their project. And then this is just to highlight our fiscal year 2023 to 2025 projects. You can see the orange on the far right column are projects we've already completed as part of this program. And then projects that are highlighted in blue in the middle column are in design or construction. And then projects that are highlighted red are still planned for this fiscal year. And then we do have one project that will be contracted with an external contractor, and that would be Southwest Oak Street, which will start in late April. All right, Justin, I will hand it back over to you.
Yes, thank you. Thanks, Marisa, and thanks, Sarah, for the great information on our mains replacement program and all the work that our engineering team is doing. I'd like to also just take a moment to acknowledge a couple of our elected commissioners who have joined us this afternoon. Commissioners Fisher and Duggan are attending the meeting. We appreciate their time as well. And with that, we'd like to just open up for any questions from folks who were attending today and might be curious about mains replacement, what it means to replace a water main. We did have one question in the chat already, something actually I should have addressed at the start of the meeting about getting a copy of the recording and the slides after the presentation. So a good thing to point out is that these meetings are recorded and they will be posted to our TVWD YouTube channel afterwards. And the link to that will be provided at tvwd.org/talkinwater. That's the same website people would have used to access the meeting today. So we'll put the meeting, the video, I should say, there. That way, if there's any content you heard today and you might want to go back and review it in the future, you're able to do that. And with that, I'd like to ask if there are any other comments. We got one person saying thanks for the presentation and for posting the link to the video later. And I'm not seeing any other hands or questions from the audience. So we'll give it a few more seconds here, and we call it the 8-second rule to see if anyone wants to ask any questions before today's presentation might be wrapped up.
I have a question.
Please go for it.
First of all, thank you so much. It's a great presentation. So at what point the homeowner responsible for any kind of leakage, and how are we going to identify if there is leak underground?
So are you referring to if a leak might be on the customer's side of the water meter or versus the TVWD side?
So that the customer side is from the meter, right, to the home?
Right. So what I'll do is I'll go see if I can go back some slides and show one of the images that Sarah had. Let's see, just a moment here. So in the image here on this slide, you can see a picture of the house and the water main under the street and what we call a service line that connects the water main over to your water meter. That water meter is the dividing line between what is publicly owned and maintenance responsible for that infrastructure being the water main, the copper service line that takes that water from our main and into the water meter that TVWD owns. And then there's a bit of a gray dividing line there on that image by the home. That's the kind of, or I should say, that's the boundary. Everything after the water meter from the front yard of the home, then back to the house and internal plumbing is the responsibility of the homeowner. So if you do have any leaks inside that service between the water meter and your home, those would be the responsibility of a homeowner such as yourself. And you'd be hiring your licensed plumber of your choice to investigate that leak. And if you do have a leak on that service line or somewhere in your home, we'd absolutely encourage you to submit a leak adjustment form. Those are available on our website. And we do have a program to help customers with some of that financial assistance for the cost of water leaks, especially as they may occur sometimes in the service line, under your front yard or so forth, where they're a little bit more difficult to locate or find, and they might leak for a while. And our customer service team is also happy to review your water consumption history to see if there might be any signals in your water consumption that could indicate a leak on your property.
Oh, thank you. So there's no any other way to identify the leak on the customer side, right? Other than, so we have to wait until the bill comes to us?
You know, the other way to do it, we see Sarah potentially chiming in. The other way I would
Yeah.
say is if you contact our customer service team, they can send a field customer service representative to your home and they can check for movement on your water meter. They probably work with you to coordinate turning off all water services inside your home, all your faucets and fixtures, and seeing if there is any movement on that water meter that would indicate water is moving somewhere through a leak in your home. Sarah, is there anything else you could add to that?
Thank you.
That's perfect, Justin. That's exactly what I was going to recommend.
Great, thank you. And those
Yep.
piping are mostly PEX piping and they don't break easily, right?
That's going to
Sarah-
depend on, yeah, that will depend on the age of your home. We see a lot of homes in our service area that have original plumbing to the house that could be galvanized plumbing. As the plumbing ages, it definitely, you'll notice some flow restrictions on your pressure that could be indicative that you don't have as much of that area through your pipe where the water can get through. It's basically like drinking out of a straw at that point rather than a 1-inch service. And so, you know, we always encourage customers to contact a plumber and see what the best option is for your house. PEX is definitely the way that newer homes have been plumbed, but even PEX can have issues where installation is poor and you can get a leak on that as well. So always something to be watching for on your water bills.
Thank you. And if you have any kind of leak or any broken pipe, something, so then we can choose whoever the contractor we prefer, right? No need to go through
Right.
Water District, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
And yeah, and of course, and you can always repair it yourself too if you're comfortable with that. You don't necessarily have to hire a plumber as long as you get the appropriate permits for your work.
Thank you.
And we do have one question, Sarah, might be a good one for you to answer here. It comes from customer Joel Hill. Does TVWD have a goal for how many leaks you are trying to keep the distribution system under?
Yeah, that's a great question, Joel. We tend to look at it more as a trend. What we're looking for is making sure that the number of leaks that we have per year is not increasing. And so we didn't include like a historical trend line of how many leaks per year that we have in our system. But what we've noticed since we've implemented our mains replacement program is that the number of leaks has stayed very consistent year to year. We would imagine that if we didn't have an active mains replacement program, that our number of leaks per year would increase. And so that's kind of what we're keeping the pulse on, is just what is the trend for the number of leaks. Right now, our crews are doing a great job keeping up with the leaks. We see a lot of them during the winter time. Because of the shear breaks that I mentioned, the temperature does impact those greatly. So we definitely are looking at that. If we saw the corrosion leaks increasing and taking over this pie chart here on this screen, that would be an area of concern for us.
Thank you, Sarah. And as of right now, there are no further questions. So we'll give another few seconds for anyone who else wants to, any other folks who want to ask a question. And during that time, I'll put this final slide up. Again, tvwd.org/talkinwater. That is the link you can go to later on at any time after the meeting. We'll have the video presented there. And any questions about water main replacement can always be sent to engineering@tvwd.org. And we do have one more question, comes from Zoe. Are there concerns with an increase in homeowner service lines getting corroded and exposing people to lead in the next decade as the piping ages? I will start that off before I hand it over to you, Sarah. Interestingly enough, this is a great timed question because we've recently completed a lead and copper rule revision compliance initiative where we did take a significant sample study effort around our district of all service lines that were of unknown material type, and we're able to conclude with a statistically significant, sorry, that was a tough one, amount of research that we do not have any lead service lines in our district. So there are always concerns with age of service lines in older homes for a lot of reasons, but as it relates to exposing people to lead in the next decade, we can say with a fair amount of certainty that we do not have lead service lines in our service territory for TVWD. And this, commonly called the LCRR rule, is something that's a nationwide rule for all public water utilities to comply with. So we are not the only district who's going through an initiative similar to this one currently. And with that, I'll see if there are any other questions at the moment. And not seeing any. So with that, I wanted to close off. Yes.
There is a new one from customer Joel in the chat that I can field.
Go ahead, please.
So the question is, do you have a spatial piece to project selection so that there isn't a project on one street and then on the next street down the very next year or something similar? That's a great question, and something that we do look at when we're doing our project scoping is to look at nearby areas and see if they also are areas of concern. We have the soil history data as well as pipe age and other risk categories that we look at to help us identify where projects are best needed and how to have the least impact on the neighborhoods. Unfortunately, sometimes we don't have all of the information to be able to make that decision. And so we go out and we ask somebody to do a condition assessment. We'll do like acoustic testing on the pipeline to look at the integrity of the pipeline and to help us validate the areas that we're looking at. So it's something that we're constantly striving to improve on and make sure that we are not impacting the same neighborhoods year after year after year. But we do also at the same time have to be cognizant of what our budget is that we're allowed to use each year. And sometimes projects are phased in order to be able to do larger neighborhoods year after year. And so if that is a neighborhood that we have to phase a project, our communications team is ahead of that, making sure people know what's coming and when it's coming.
And Zoe, I see your hand is raised. Would you like to unmute yourself and ask a question?
Yeah, thank you. My question is kind of, there's a lot of nuance to it, but as like Washington County grows and we're worried about like cryptosporidium and our water filtration, like that increases prices. Also, as the county grows, like as that urban growth boundary expands and we're considering that, how does like our rates and how will our rates be affected, do you think, in like the next 10 to 20 years, especially as now we're putting in new piping, we're having to manage all of the new filtration and whatnot. And then if there's natural disasters like earthquakes and other things, like how do you manage that, or how does that planning go? And do you have concerns?
It's a great question. I'll start off the answer, but I'll also ask a couple staff members who are in attendance to get ready to help out with the answer. Joel Carey and Pete Boone from our engineering operations and water quality sections, if you could be ready to help out. I would say the first part of that answer is that related to growth and in increased projections of water demands throughout the region as the urban growth boundary changes and things like that. TVWD has invested for more than a decade, I believe now, on increasing our program's ability to have a new water source. That's the Willamette water supply. So we've been increasing water rates to build up that financial capital, and we've been investing in constructing a new water supply and a new water treatment plant as part of that to supply our region for future generations to come with a state-of-the-art and highly reliable water source. That also would address a lot of what you are, I think, asking with your comment about cryptosporidium and other things. But as far as the planning component of the future generations for the water district, I would love to hear if Pete, I see your camera's on, if you could elaborate as well on this.
Yeah, thanks, Justin. So my name's Pete Boone. I'm Chief Operating Officer here at TVWD. So I get to work with our engineers and operations staff and a few other work groups. I'll just echo what Justin said about rates. So the big project that we're working on right now, and there's some information online about this, the Willamette water supply system. So that's a partnership between TVWD, the city of Beaverton, and the city of Hillsborough. So we're pooling our resources to build this new resilient water supply system. And as you can imagine, it's pretty expensive. And so our rates have increased substantially over about the last 10 years in anticipation of that. And we've used some other funding mechanisms. We've taken advantage of some federal funding and some bond issuance and some other sources to spread that cost out over time, and to try to keep those rate increases manageable for our customers, because we recognize that affordability has become challenging for a lot of our folks. So the good news is we're just about done with those significant rate increases, and so going forward, we expect our rate increases to just match the rate of inflation, so that we can keep up with increasing costs and not let ourselves fall behind in that. So we understand water bills have gone up substantially. That's posed some challenges for folks. And so, like what you hear about from Sarah and her team is, we're trying really hard to manage the budget where we can. So, we recognize we can't afford to do everything all at once. So we try to space our projects out, do the most important things, first, and then plan for the future. And then I'm trying to remember all of the aspects of your questions, though, but I know one of them had to do with growth in the region and how are we planning for growth. So we do long range forecasting, both on population and what we think the water demands will be for those customers that we're going to need to serve. And so we project on about a 50-year planning horizon, both financially and for the water needs. And so the last time we took a long look at that was we've updated our population forecast, I believe, last year as part of a water management and conservation plan that was just completed. And Sarah's team will be starting a new water master plan in the next couple of years after the Willamette's online. So probably 2028, we would have a new water master plan. And again, that's that 50-year planning horizon. It guides our capital spending, helps us focus what the priorities are going to be on how we spend those capital dollars. And really what we project the focus to be after we brought this resilient water supply online with the Willamette is hardening our system so that we can do our best to resist damage from an earthquake in the service area. So that means reinforcing pipelines and probably replacing some pipelines with newer technologies, resilient pipe, to make sure that we can get that water from the resilient source as closely as we can to all of our customers. Now, back to affordability and rates, we just won't be able to afford to harden all 760 miles of the pipeline. I think the rate increases that would take would be unsustainable for our customers. And so we'll have to make some hard decisions about where we have resilient pipe and which areas are going to be. I mean, it'll be district wide, but we have to predict there's going to be a lot of pipe breaks, and some of those are going to be in neighborhoods. So there will still be impacts. But one of our goals is to make sure that we can get water throughout the service area, if not to everyone's home right after the earthquake, but at least in the neighborhood, and then be able to focus our restoration efforts and minimize that time frame. So Zoe, please unmute if there's anything that I didn't address, or if you had follow-up questions, or anyone else.
That was excellent. Thank you.
Thank you for the question, and thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for the great question. I think the only thing I would add to what Pete said is, is the Willamette Water Supply Project is completing construction over the course of this next year. One thing we will be starting to talk about a lot with our customers is what it means when that project is done, what integrating that new water source into our distribution system looks like. So you'll be hearing a lot more from TVWD about the Willamette Water Supply, not only at a higher level, because a lot of that construction has been outside of our district. We don't expect a ton of our customers to really be seeing it on a daily basis. So we'll begin talking a lot about what that project means as it wraps construction, and what integrating that water source into into your water service daily means, what that looks like, and what that timing will be. So you can expect to hear a lot more from Tualatin Valley Water District staff in the coming months, and we'll be also hosting future editions of Talkin' Water later this year on that very topic with water quality experts, and additionally folks like Pete and Sarah from our engineering team. So it's a lot to cover, and we appreciate everyone's willingness to join us and listen on topics like that. And with that, we'll see, are there any other questions from the audience today? Not seeing or hearing any, we will then say thank you to everyone for spending your lunch break or your middle of your day with us. We really appreciate it. It's a great opportunity for us to explain what we do as your water provider and the services that we bring to the community, and how we go about making decisions about things like water main replacements. So again, appreciate everyone's time today. We'll have the link to today's presentation hosted online shortly. And thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate it.